This is a regular scheduled meeting of the Franklin Township Environmental Commission. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this meeting has been posted. Roll call. Marie Sandiago Valentin.
I'm here.
And Seal is no longer with us. Diane Podesky.
I'm here.
She's no longer on the commission. It's not, she hasn't passed.
No, I don't mean that. Robin Sudan.
Here.
Arnold Smith.
Staniaras present, yes.
Walter Andrews, I'm here. Paul Walensky.
Here.
Ted Chase. Jessica Johnson.
Here.
All right, did I get everybody?
Walter, did you get me? Did you get Diane?
Yes, I did.
I think
Okay,
so. You said yes.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Did you
Walter-
get Tara?
Pardon?
Walter, before
Sorry,
we
what was that?
before we leave the roll call, can we talk about our representation on the planning board?
Yeah. Who wants to lead that? Ted?
Well, we have nobody now at the moment, right?
That's right.
I'd like to lead that discussion.
Okay.
Right now, we need somebody from the planning board to be an environmental commission member. We haven't heard anything from the planning board yelling to us that they need somebody. I think once the elections are over, there is, if it goes for the year, then we can hopefully get Ted appointing to the planning board, since he will no longer be a council person, and then he would be appointed to the open position of liaison from the planning board to the environmental commission.
That's the
So,
ideal situation.
There has not been a call from the screening committee to screen for the planning board. So personally, I would like to see it just stay as it is. I had made the suggestion at one point that if they do need somebody for the planning board, I would screen for the planning board. And if they picked me, then I would be the liaison. And if for some reason I couldn't continue, then I would drop out, and hopefully that could mean that Ted could then screen for it. But right now, I don't hear anybody screaming for it. And I would hate to see somebody come on from the planning board and be the liaison and then not leave a path for Ted to be a member of the environmental commission.
This is Robin. I agree with that. I'm just wondering if we would be well served to have somebody environmental commission minded to be on planning board meetings between now and the end of the year. And I think, Arnie, you would be a fine person to do it. Or are we not risking anything by leaving it blank and not having anyone speaking with our voice?
I don't think we're risking anything. It's not that long.
Who is making decision about this? Do we need to vote or?
Well, the people that are making the decision is the screening board,
Right,
which
not
is
us.
led by Ron Jordan, who's I don't know if he's the chairman or the president of the Democratic Party, but he's the one that leads the screening committee, and he's the one that calls for screening of these positions.
Okay.
And I think you're on mute.
Who's that?
I wasn't muted before. I discussed this idea with Ron Jordan, and he was supportive. And I point out that I am on the planning board now as councilman, and I try to represent the positions of the environmental commission. I even bring up green roofs.
Okay.
Haven't gotten any green roofs yet, but they're now asking for charging stations for electric cars and bicycle racks and for every warehouse.
Well, that's
Very
good.
good.
That answers my concern, that if Ted is there, even if it's in an advisory role or a liaison role, he can have an influence. So I'm comfortable with that. Thank you for explaining that, Ted.
I explained the whole, not the shift around, but I explained the environmental issues to Sheepa Uden. We had her present here to Canal Walk, and she just called me this afternoon about another thing, but that was one of the things we asked her about.
Okay, all right.
I like to believe that we let sleeping dogs lie for the time being.
Yep.
Okay, is that a general consensus or do we want a motion vote?
I don't think we need to vote on it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think there's a consensus.
I
all
think
right.
the only thing we can do, we can formally make endorsement.
I don't
Is
think
it
we need to do
something-
anything right now. I think,
No?
like Arnie
Okay.
said, just let it lie until it plays out the way it's
Okay, good.
meant to.
All right, so be it. All right,
Mhm.
if we move down the agenda, the minutes next here, I believe so, yeah. Have you all had a chance to review the minutes from the what was it, the
I think
19th, April 19th meeting?
I'll make a
Good, everybody.
motion to approve them as they were presented to us.
Get a second? Need a
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we approve the April 19 minutes as presented to us. All in favor, let's say aye.
Aye.
All- Any opposed?
I abstain. I
Abstain?
wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, one abstention. Minutes are approved. Thank you. All right, I'm losing my agenda here. What's next on the, after the, hold on.
Next is that we open for public discussion. So I'll motion that we open to the public.
Get a second?
We don't have
Second.
any public though.
So, well, we still need to do it. Second.
Oh, no.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we open the meeting to the public. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
All right, okay.
don't have any
Um,
public.
All
Motion
right.
that we close to the public.
Get a second? Okay. It's been moved and second that we close the meeting to the public. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay, so let's go back to the meeting per se.
So the next is our email.
Oh, yeah.
We have an email from Christian Wright at Rutgers Prep. He says, to whom it may concern, I am a high schooler and was wondering what your team was doing in regards to community service or volunteer opportunities in our community. I think this is a really important topic at this time due to the fact that things are opening up again. I know there's a large amount of people getting back out into our parks, etc. This brings with it a new wave of litter and disregard for the environment. Has your organization created any organized chances to help out during this time, or simply anything in general to keep our environment more sustainable? My peers and I would love to help with this project in any way we can. If you have any questions about my request, please feel free to contact me. Have a great day. So it's a Rutgers Prep high schooler who wants to help and apparently has other students who want to help. So do we have any
Wow.
ways that they can volunteer?
Wow. Yeah, they're right down the road.
Yeah, down
Well,
Easton.
They can do a survey of streams and determine which stream would be a good candidate for the next cleanup.
Is there something they could do right now? Is there like an additional cleanup we could orchestrate?
Well, if it's really needed, we can, but it's having the idea of which stream to select doesn't hurt to know ahead of a time. And if they want to do it, it's very easy. It involves, being in the field, taking pictures, and thinking about it.
Stan, important consideration is would they have transportation?
Dan, their properties along the canal.
one thing I
That
would,
abuts the canal, so they could clean up that whole towpath,
yeah,
walk there from
The
school.
ca-
Like they could just walk to the Van Wickle house right from Rutgers Prep and then go on the towpath.
Yes, that would be an option because they don't have to go, they don't have to travel from there.
Right. They could kind of adopt it maybe.
Well, that would be a great project, and they could provide a report to us or recommendations.
So
But
what am I
before-
writing back? Am I writing, hi, Christian? Thank you so much for
Oh.
your email.
Depending where these boys live, they can actually monitor stream in their area that is
I think,
reachable by foot.
well, what I'm gathering is that it, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but what I gathered from our back and forth was that it makes more sense for Rutgers Prep students to monitor the towpath behind their school.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes. Well, yeah, I was just, giving them more options, but oh, yeah, okay.
And they live all over the state. Like they have Rutgers Prep kids coming in from Monmouth County even.
Right.
Really? I thought they are local.
Oh yeah, they're like they come from way far away.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't help us if they do it elsewhere. So yes, okay.
But I might add that they might be interested in a project that kind of goes somewhere.
Right. That was my thought. Like, is there something that we could get them to do?
I think Stan makes a good point. If they could start with right where they are and then look to maybe phase 2 being reviewing in Franklin Township the status of the streams.
Yes, but if it's not in the town,
But if they go to prep may be giving them time to do this community service work within their academic day. And so this is something we would need to find out, but I think if we laid this out as something that could develop into something interesting.
So what
rather
am I
than-
writing? What am I writing back? I'm saying, thank you so much for your email. The Franklin Township EC would love it if you and your fellow classmates could monitor the towpath behind your school and clean up any litter and keep track of the volume to report back to us.
And then I would go further and say, if interested, we might be able to expand this program to talk about monitoring or doing a survey of other stream sites in the township and
Hey, Jim.
developing a plan.
yes.
A general point here, looking further in the future, is to monitor for plastic waste before and after the ban on plastic bags goes into effect.
Absolutely.
I think step 1 is who is going to be the volunteer to kind of oversee this project and give them a point person within the commission.
Yeah, I could be the point person.
You okay with that, Stan?
Yeah, because it's related to what I do every year anyway. And I suggested that. So,
I think it'd be wonderful, Stan.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll craft an email back to them, and Stan, I'll copy you and name you as the point person. And then we have 2 more emails. We have
Oh, Jessica, before you leave that, we have to be careful, when we have volunteers, because, if they are doing it under the guidance or, in partnership with the EC, and we haven't cleared that with Bob Barnlocker. When I say cleared, at least he knows of it because of the liability issue. Before we go ahead, then we might have to step back. So just maybe I'll tell you what, the letter that you are drafting back to them, send it to me and I'll share it with Bob to see if he's okay with that. And then if so, we can send it to them. How does that sound?
Sure.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
thinking that, yes,
go ahead.
No, I'm thinking that to your point, maybe our role would be more of an advisory.
Yeah.
And when they execute the survey on the cleanup, they would have to arrange it with adult on their end.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they would have their
Supervision.
own liability to do it. They would report to us, to me, what they found, send pictures.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
might be present, of course I might, but that doesn't mean that I will assume liability for the kids.
Okay.
If it's a community service project they have to do for Rutgers Prep, they probably have a supervisor at Rutgers Prep. And we could
Right,
inquire
right.
about that and get a contact name.
And they would be covered under their school's liability in that respect.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Jessica,
Alright.
can I just check? His name was Christian Wright?
Christian Wright, WRIGHT.
Okay, good. I had gotten that. And for the minutes.
Okay, then let's move on to the next one then.
Okay, the next one is from Jessica Mukiha. I'm probably saying that wrong. It's Mukhija. She actually sent a note to Mayor Kramer and a number of councilmen, including yourself, Ted, where she commented on the 3 new forest management bills that have been introduced into New Jersey State Legislature. She's saying she's attached 2 documents to help us oppose those bills. I'll read you it's long.
Wow.
So
What kind of bills?
got rid of me.
Some type of enforcement bills, you say?
What kind of bills?
Why don't we let Jessica review it and come back to us? She's our horse person.
No, this is about forest management.
Forest.
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 Oh.
I've seen
Yeah.
something
Yes.
and I
there-
didn't understand it.
Yeah, it's taking away municipal authority over a lot of forest management and putting it in the hands of.
Right. Oh, Ted was forwarding it to us.
Yes.
Now I
Right.
remember.
Ted was on this. So
Actually, I think Jessica's, well,
no, Ted, you were on this. You were on this.
got
Ian.
information from the Sierra Club, which was the most comprehensive. So I could send that, or Tara could send that. There's a bill requiring counties, the state, counties, municipalities, and nonprofits with forests of 25 acres or more to have a forest stewardship plan prepared. And there's 2 negatives to this. One is that it's an unfunded mandate, making the towns making people pay for something without the state funding it, which we have the state provisions against. And the second is that these forest management plans they have to be written by a certified forester whose training is in essentially how to log your forest sustainably. Well, townships and nonprofits generally did not acquire forests to log them, but yet the concern is that they might be forced to log them to pay for the forest stewardship plan. The second bill exempts forest stewardship plans from any municipal regulation, even if it was the municipality's forest that was for which the stewardship plan was prepared. And there's a third bill. I haven't gotten to studying that yet, but I keep meaning to do this, and we should fire off letters to Bob Smith about this.
Where's this coming from, Ted? Where's the impetus for this? Do you know?
I don't know. It sounds like full employment for certified foresters,
Yes, it does.
proposed by a couple of legislators from Burlington County, I think. But nobody that I've talked to, I heard about at least the first bill from Emil DeVito of New Jersey Conservation Foundation, back in February, I think. And I wrote letters about it to our assembly people then. It's passed the Assembly Agriculture Committee, and it was up for a hearing in Bob Smith's committee. I suspect he doesn't quite understand what it is. Maybe he does now. Oh, the third bill, there was another bill, I think the third bill set a required minimum for prescribed burning every year. The legislature would be saying you have to do thus and such prescribed burning, even if you don't need to, even if conditions aren't right. I mean, prescribed burning depends heavily on the proper weather conditions. Tara can tell us about that, because we had one at our John Klein Grigstown open space. It's
Yeah.
very important.
It is super, it's very, very dependent on not just the wind speed, but also the humidity in the air and the temperature. You basically have a season of burning, and it could happen anytime in those like 60 or 90 days that are identified. And that one bill did say, I think it was like 10,000 acres across the state and 50,000 in the Pine Barrens was the minimum that was going to be set by the state, but there's really no identification as to why that number was chosen.
Has the township taken a stand on this, Ted?
Not so far. I should probably bring it up formally.
Maybe the foresters will say, as an alternative to burning, it's logging.
Yeah. How much
So that-
time do we have? It sounds like no advantage to Franklin Township. Tara, do you read it that way?
I'm sorry, hold on one second. I was muted. I missed the last thing you said.
It sounds like there's no advantage to Franklin Township in these bills.
No, I don't think there's much advantage, especially because requiring these forest management plans on any public space acquired over 25 acres is basically an automatic additional cost for us right away. And as Ted mentioned, there are not a lot of people that are qualified to do this type of plan as it's specified in this bill. So it's more of a time delay. It's definitely an additional cost. I think the woodland management plans would cover some of the areas that are farmed, but for other areas, it's a pretty big undertaking to do one of these plans. So it's difficult. It's like, it puts it in position on municipal governments in terms of acquiring the open space.
What's the most effective way to convey our satisfaction with it, or to encourage our representatives to vote it down?
Let me see, this one here, so the one we were just talking about, looks like it was just introduced on March 11th. So right now, it looks like it is, it's kind of early on, and yes, it's sponsored by Carol Murphy, Eric Hoftling, and Parker Space. So I guess probably the most effective thing would be to write something to our representatives and maybe copy these individuals. Ted, is that what you think?
No,
I think that's probably step one, because it's really on right now.
Yeah, and do that for all three bills.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be writing Smith, who is Danielson? Egan?
Yes.
Okay,
There's one more email beyond that.
Oh, wait. Who's gonna write this letter? Ted, could you write it and Walter send the emails to the appropriate parties?
Yeah, because I'm certainly intending to write one. I've actually, well, on the first one, the one requiring fire management plans, I wrote a letter, so I pretty much send that. It could probably be rewritten, so it's not obviously the same letter, but and I've got to work up the others.
And they can be
The
short.
municipalities, I think, is alerted, and there's nothing the League of Municipalities hates more than an unfunded mandate.
all right.
There's actually a council, a special committee that you can refer a claim of unfunded mandate. If they agree, the legislation is null and void.
Mm.
Doesn't happen very often, but
So do you think the township might write from that angle and we just write from Environmental Commission?
yeah,
All right. Well, I think if you could ghost write it and Walter send it out, and we could tell this person, Jess, that thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's something we've been discussing. And
Oh, they sent it to the, they sent this to the mayor and Ted will read it, so I'm just gonna file it because I feel like it's on a different level.
okay.
And I feel like if Ted's gonna respond back to it, then that's sort of addresses it. Am I wrong?
yeah.
Well,
Well,
is this a Franklin Township person who wrote it to us?
No, it's an intern at the Food and Water Watch.
oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, then if it were a township resident, I think we'd owe them, you know.
Right, I agree. But yeah, because I don't want to not respond, not tell the group about an email. So that's my. So this last one, I don't know that we even need to answer, but this is from Lynn Brotman. She says, "Hello, I'm in the process of trying to buy a house in Franklin Township. The home inspection showed an existing water problem that the seller is denying and refusing to address in any way. As the water's inside a wall, there is the possibility there is mold or other microorganisms. Trying to find out if there are any rules, regulations, or other means of support that would compel the seller to address the problem. Or if I move forward with the purchase, please mute yourself if you're not speaking. Okay. Or if I move forward with the purchase and what my responsibility or liability would be. I really feel like this is not for us to address, in my personal opinion.
No, no.
How about Department of Health?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the county health department, but
Right. I would recommend she contact the Somerset County Health Department.
yeah.
Okay. So that's it for email. And for social media, remember we had discussed that on the first meeting of the month, we would discuss what could possibly get posted and put some ideas out. Does anyone have anything they want to address or put out for posting? Anything at all?
I thought that Stan was working on something. Is that right, Stan?
Yes, but it has been released on
Right.
Earth Day.
So there's no need for it.
It was report about the stream cleanup.
Yeah.
So we need something new.
Right. So that was
Yeah.
the thing, is we wanted to do one thing each month. And the first meeting of the month, we would discuss what it is, and then we would vote on that at the second meeting of the month and then get it published. So onto social media. So are there any items that we want to address or comment on for this month?
This is the first meeting of the month. Absolutely.
Right. So does anyone have anything they want to potentially put up for vote at the next meeting?
Hmm.
No. Okay, so we won't do a post that this month then.
Wait. We have to do something. So I was thinking, and Diane, correct me if I'm recalling well, we wanted to talk about the inventory,
The ERI.
yeah,
Alright.
environmental resources inventory. And can we kind of post link on social media to the inventory and give open question to the residents and ask them, did you know that we have this, or that we have inventory? Did you know that on this page is this written? Did you know that something else is written over there? How do you, what do you like on it? What you don't like? Some sort of stimulating discussion about it.
Yeah, maybe ask people what's not on here that you think should be.
Or
I think
yes,
that's a wonderful idea. We had a survey many years ago about something like this, but I don't think it's something that we can decide at this very moment. I think it's something that we need to put our heads together and decide what questions need to be asked and not just come up with something at the last minute like this with questions. I think we could come up with 10, 15 different questions, but it's something that we need to decide on.
Arnie, I think you're talking about a general survey. This is specific to our environmental resource inventory, just to get people to read it.
I understand that, but we still need to come up with what questions there are going to be, we're going to ask.
well, I just presented some, so we can take it from here.
Why don't we vote on it next meeting and we can all think of a question or two?
That's exactly my point. I think that's a good idea, Robin.
I think the first thing is to tell them that it exists and how they can access it, which would be wherever the master plan is listed on the township website.
Can it get moved
It's
to
also,
our
Perhaps
webpage?
give them some example what's in it.
yeah, we also have it now, more obvious link on our website,
It's on
supposedly.
the environmental commission page now? Fine.
Krista said it was. I haven't-
I'll check. Thanks.
Well, do we need a point person on this, or is there an existing body that can carry this forward? That's in terms of corralling the questions and sort of formulating something that would be, social media ready, so to speak.
Well, I would nominate Stan and Diane since they were the ones that were talking about doing this, no? Can you guys, is it too much? I know we all have a lot on our plates.
Diane, what do you think?
Could be just 3
With
questions.
me, I'm just not 100% clear on what we're doing, but I'll work with you, Stan. We're just gonna
Okay.
post something on social, do we have social media to post it on?
Well,
Yeah,
this is,
it would go on the township's Facebook page. That's what this is for, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
no.
Work with Stan on
yeah.
that.
maybe I need to maybe I need to put a reminder out at the second meeting to think about something for the first meeting
Yeah.
each month. Because I do think for us to remain relevant on social media, we do need to post regularly.
Yeah. And just for your information, that post on Facebook, the township website about the stream cleanup has 2 likes. Me and Maria.
Oh, my
That's it.
goodness.
That's it.
And
That's not helping our cause here, Stan.
Jessica,
Kill me.
it might be helpful if we ask this same question instead of at the beginning of each meeting, ask it at the end of the meeting when we will have talked about a lot of topics. And then at the end, we could say, that topic we just talked about would be good for a post. Because we're kind of coming in unattached at the beginning of a meeting. Just a
Okay,
thought.
let's.
So, okay, so
Fine.
Walter, is it possible then to put monthly social media post as the last item on new business every single meeting.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
I agree. We will have more on our plate, more fodder for the,
We will have more meat.
yeah, more meat.
The only ERI that I'm seeing on the commission page is the one from 2008. The updated.
So those of us who don't.
Well,
have Facebook-
Mark Healy sent us link to the new one. I thought,
We're gonna talk about website updates later in the meeting, so Diane, hold that thought.
Okay.
All right. Very good.
It's wrong.
That's it for me.
Okay, I keep, what's next? Is it,
I think it's time.
so
Next
website
is
update.
plans review.
I think it would be
Oh, yeah,
fair
yeah.
to let Tara on now.
okay, to get her, I agree, Ted. Yeah, we have Tara scheduled to talk about, I'm sorry, was that green infrastructure?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tara, are you ready?
Do you
I'm
have
ready.
slides to share?
I do, yep.
Jessica, can you give her?
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Let me get this going. Okay, can you all see this?
Yes.
Yep. Beautiful.
Okay. Awesome, good. Okay, so thanks so much for having me back again. I just received the updated impervious cover assessment and green infrastructure action plan from Rutgers Water Resources Program. So they have been working with us for a little while, trying to update these two documents. And then the final phase is the creation of what's called a green infrastructure strategic plan, which I'll get into what it is at the end. But right now I have the final updates of these two documents, and I went through them and I tried to put the data together in a way that's easily comparable. So I figured we could take a look at it. Yeah.
Was it supplied by Chris Obrupta?
Yes. Yep. And Chris Abrupta, Sarah Miller, and their students. So I'll go through it, and if you have any questions, just feel free to stop me. So basically, the first thing I want to talk about is the impervious cover assessment. So back in 2015, I think I may have discussed this last time, Franklin had an impervious cover assessment completed. In order to develop this green infrastructure strategic plan, which is what we received the grant for through Sustainable Jersey, these documents really needed to be updated. And the first one, the ICA, the impervious coverage, the impervious coverage assessment, what it does is it specifically looks at all the impervious cover in the township, where it drains to, how we're treating it, and then if we were to apply some green infrastructure practices very generally, how would that affect the pollutant loading and how would it affect the volume of stormwater runoff? So the impervious cover assessment breaks the township down and looks at it by sub-watershed. And so that's what I'm going to show you in just a minute. And just to real quick talk about the Sustainable Jersey grant, just to refresh your memories, we did receive the $20,000 from Sustainable Jersey. So that is funding the entirety of this, of these reports. So in 2015, as I mentioned, the impervious cover assessment was done. In 2021, which was just, in the last few days, it has been updated. So I tried to take the key findings from each report and compare them to see really what is the difference between the two. So, for example, in the first one, we're looking at the acres of land between the two. Now, they should be very close. The reason there might be a difference, a little slight difference here and there, is because we are using updated land use land cover data from NJDEP. So as the programs and the GIS software improves, we get more and more specific. So you may see a slight difference here and there, but for the most part, they should be the same. In 2015 and 2021, we also looked at the land use area of each sub-watershed. Again, same principle applies. You're going to see a little difference here and there. It really is just because the software has become more refined and we're able to really zero in more on exact boundaries than we were even in 2015. Water area, kind of same thing. The real big difference is you're going to see is in the impervious cover for each sub watershed. So if you look for 2015, for example, the first top one here is Heathco Brook. In 2015, it was reported that there was 44.2 acres of impervious cover. In 2021, it was discovered there was 64.3 acres. And then you can look at each sub watershed and kind of see what the difference is. And then overall, we have an increase in impervious cover from 2015 to 2021 of 4.4%, which is a total of 1,305 acres, 305.7 acres. Ted and I were talking about this before, and it is, you know, we are wondering where some of these increases came from. And I don't have an exact response yet from Rutgers on that. However, the one thing I can say is that because the software has come so far and because their methodology has really, it's the same type of methodology, but I think that they're really looking through it for a much more refined lens. I think we're able to kind of, you know, count impervious cover where maybe it wasn't counted before. So that's what I suspect some of the increase may be, but I'll get a definite answer on that from Rutgers. The other issue is there is going to be an increase in impervious cover just when new things are built or when things are retrofitted with impervious cover, or pervious land is now changed to impervious. So those kind of things happen. So again, this is over the 6-year period, and that's the overall increase.
Question.
Yep.
I see that Okies Brook has the highest impervious cover. I have no idea. Where is Okies Brook? Ted, do you know?
Okies Brook is a brook basically in South Brunswick Township. I always describe that sub-watershed in Franklin as being the front lawn of the 6 Mile Run Reformed Church. I guess it's a little more than that if it's if they say there's 36 acres, but it's basically in the vicinity of the Frank.
It's actually a high percentage, but it's very small area, 22, 24 acres, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is the percentage of that Okies Brook that is impervious cover. So the total acres is only 36.4, but 24 acres of it is impervious coverage.
If you think about it for a minute, I can speak to this a little bit. 6 Mile Run Church goes from Pleasant Plains to Claremont. And so the roof area of the church is substantial. The parking lot isn't so great, but the roof area is huge. And next door to it is the Franklin Park Firehouse, which has paved the entire lot of the firehouse.
And it's
So
impervious.
between those two, it's a lot.
So this is my question, like, is this study only ever done every 6 years? Or how, like, frequently do they do this? Because if we're talking that it's going to be done every 6 years, then it's going to be the same thing every 6 years where the technology is outpacing our ability to manage the impervious cover.
Well, the first one and the only one ever was done in 2015, and that was done because Rutgers has their water resources program, and they basically came up with this type of methodology and this report to do this. So there's a lot of towns that have not updated it since 2015. We're doing it because we were able to get the grant from Sustainable Jersey, and in order to get to the final plan, we really needed these updated documents. But there's no requirement that it be updated, you know, at a certain period of time.
I'm just wondering if doing it more frequently may give us better data and help us manage, you know, like we go look at plans and there's these requests for what's the, you know, we want to increase the impervious surface by however many square feet. And we're like, okay, it's not a lot, but you say that enough, it's like, it's getting, it's like nickel and diming the impervious cover add-ons. And my thought is that like the regulations with regards to how much impervious cover can be added or what's acceptable may need to be adjusted if we're seeing a 4% increase over a 6-year period.
Tara,
Yeah.
Is this a real, how much of that is a real increase and how much is due to improvement in the software? I mean,
Yeah.
Ted, we don't know that, but we're
No,
never
she
gonna
said
know
she
that.
doesn't know.
yeah, we
Yeah.
have to
We're never
ask.
gonna know that if we only do this every 6 years, right?
Yeah,
So
we don't know it for sure. I mean, if I had to take a guess, which is basically all I can do, out of the 4.4%, I would say the bulk of it is probably increase in impervious cover, and a small marginal amount is probably, better software. In 6 years, in a land area of our size with the type of development we have, and even retrofitting, I don't think it's unreasonable that this is the number it is, so one way we can keep track of it, only because it is an expensive study, but one way to keep track of it is, now that we have these numbers in place, it would be a little difficult, but maybe annually we could try and update, just add in what was the annual impervious cover, and at least kind of keep a running tally of that, even in a spreadsheet or something.
that would make sense, because then we could at least see how much impervious cover was added on a year over year.
right, based on what is built. Tara, look at the Millstone River. That's the biggest one. I mean, that doubled. pretty
It
much.
is, yep.
Now, so that's anything along the canal, I assume we're throwing that in the Millstone River.
Yeah, there is, let me show you. Let me go forward just a minute. Here we go. This is a map here, and this is from one of the later slides, but this kind of gives you a little idea of what we're talking about. So the Millstone River is this huge, like, RNG sub-watershed. Where's the Heathco? This is the Heathco down here, right? Oh,
Yeah.
these colors are hard. This is one of the things I asked Rutgers to change, and that's why we're waiting on the final report. Some of these colors, to me, they blend a little bit. But yes, so this kind of gives you a general idea of what we're talking about when we talk about the sub-watersheds.
I commented that I don't know of any new construction in the Heathcote Brook watershed.
You did, yes, you did. And I sent that. I haven't gotten a response yet, but I will follow up on that.
Unless they say the quarry is expanding.
Yeah. Could be. That's all right. Let me go back for now. Just 1 minute here. Okay. So that's the overall table. Now in the report itself, there's other fields in here, but this was like the main ones. The next thing to look at that I thought would be important was the stormwater runoff volume. So this is the amount of stormwater runoff in millions of gallons that come from the impervious cover that we just talked about at the previous table. So in 2015 now, if you can kind of keep in the back of your mind the impervious cover table that we just looked at, and now we're looking at what is the runoff off of that impervious cover. So in 2015, let's look at Millstone River. I think that was a big one. It went from 22.8 in millions of gallons to increase of 38.2. So when you add all of these increases up between all the sub-watershed, it is an increase of 44.4 in millions of gallons, right?
That explains why the Blackwell's Mills Bridge is closed all the time.
Right, yes. Now in the next part, though, that's interesting too. So let me back up for 1 second here. So the reason I say total volume for the 1.25-inch New Jersey water quality storm, just to kind of give you a little background, when designing a green infrastructure project, typically it is recommended that it's designed to hold the capacity of the New Jersey water quality storm, which is 1.25 inches of rain over a 2-hour period, right? So when you're designing one of these infrastructure projects, you're supposed, and even a conventional infrastructure project, you really want to be sure that it can hold that capacity of water, right? However, in New Jersey recently, that 1.25 inches has not really held up. It's really been more in the 3.5-inch range. So Rutgers also looked at what if we really over design it and allow it to hold for 44 inches, which is the New Jersey annual rainfall, right? So that's let's now look at this 44-inch annual. So now when you look at it that way, you can also see the increase. Now annually, in each watershed. For example, let's look at no, let's not look at that one. 6 Mile Run. It went from 1,020.2 up to 1,258.5. So again, you can see here the total increase. So if I just flip back for 1 second, let's look at 6 Mile Run. So you can see here a 6 Mile Run from 2015, it went from 853.9 acres of impervious cover to 1,053. That corresponds to this increase in stormwater runoff annually. So it's just really a way to really look at, okay, this is what they found, but are we actually finding that these gallons of runoff are increasing? And the answer, if you look at all of them, are yes. There is a definite, very apparent increase in the stormwater runoff gallons as well.
So Tara, is it causation or is it just correlation?
I think it's causation, and I think it's all, it probably is both, but it's definitely causation for sure. I mean, that is the reason we're seeing this amount of runoff volume. So that's to go over that kind of. Now, if we want to break it down and really just look at something, look at them up close. So I happen to choose the Lower Raritan and the Mile Run. If we just pulled those out of the table and we looked at what I was just talking about, before. The total impervious coverage in Franklin Township is defined in the report as 5,549.5 acres, which is 18.8% of the township, up from 14.4% in the last report. So if you look at the Lower Raritan, you can see here in 2015, there was 2,199.3 acres of impervious cover, which meant 74.6 in millions of gallons for the water quality design storm. Now, if you look at 2021, you can see that increase here. And this is the difference in acres, and that is the difference in gallons. And same thing for Mile Run. So I did look at all of them, but I just pulled these two out just to show you as an example. So in the Lower Raritan, and I just, I like to kind of like compare these to real life things sometimes. So these are not exact, just keep in mind. However, if you were to really try to get a visual of what that impervious cover is, it's about 373 football fields of new impervious cover. So it really adds up when you think about it that way. Now, again, this is not unreasonable. I mean, it's not good. Obviously, it's not the best thing ever, but this is very typical in New Jersey because we are so overdeveloped and because we're always retrofitting the wrong way. It seems like there is a general increase in impervious cover and in stormwater runoff across the state. That is a trend that goes statewide. So just keep that in mind.
Sarah, I have a question.
Yes.
So all this increase in impervious surface, is there any way of knowing how much of that occurred because zoning boards or planning boards or whoever was allowed to do it allowed exemptions, variances to build going against what the master plan says?
So in these reports, we're not going to get that. However, we can use this report to do that ourselves. So every year the zoning board is supposed to submit an annual report that says how many variances were granted and for what. Even if you don't have that report, you can easily find out. And if we were to put together a spreadsheet like what we were discussing before, we really could just have a spreadsheet that has, okay, here's where we started in 2021, here's the new impervious cover, and then we can look at those variances granted and see if we can correlate them yearly. I would just recommend you do that annually and not, every few years, because then it becomes too much to go through. But it can definitely, we now have kind of the foundation in place so we can build off of that.
So if there
how do we
was
do
some
that?
kind of a report that showed year after year after year, variances were given to allow for an increase in impervious surface, what, if anything, can be done about that?
Well, Arnie, remember that the variance is is allowing an increase over what the zoning law permits.
Yeah.
But if you give somebody a variance for to have 71% impervious cover where 70% is permitted, most of the increase is coming from what is permitted, not from the variance.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And these are all the warehouses that we have.
Right. The one good thing though to keep in mind too, a very good thing, is that New Jersey, passed new or amended the stormwater management rules, which now state that green infrastructure has to really be looked at as the front line of stormwater management. So it used to be the other way, that if you could fit green infrastructure in after you did your conventional stormwater management techniques like retention basins and the low flow channels, then if you could put like a rain garden, great. Now green infrastructure is supposed to be looked at first. So there is a change in the thinking at the state level, and the planning boards will start, seeing those plans because it's a requirement now. That is the stormwater requirement now. So I think, we're kind of heading in the right direction from this point forward, hopefully.
I do think getting that information on an annual basis with regards to how much impervious surface is added each year I feel like that'll enable us to use some of the data we already have to sort of mock calculate how much actual runoff will come from however many square feet of impervious surface. So when a zoning board looks at, okay, this builder wants to add however much square footage in impervious surface, that means X amount of dollars in stormwater management. And is that worth it? Right?
Yeah.
Like then it could be a matter of, okay, well, you need to either pay for this management or you can't do it.
Right.
Because that's, or put in the proper green infrastructure to help remediate it, because we can assign it to an actual dollar amount. I think that'll get some of our council to pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just taking it one step further and then using that rationale to affect the master plan.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, having these documents updated, now we know we basically have the most recent data that we can possibly have. So if we were to put all this information into a spreadsheet and start making sure we keep track of it, we could really manipulate that data to figure out, if we're looking at cost, yes. If we're looking at increased square footage, you could use it to make projections. We could use it for mapping. So yeah, I think having it all in one place is a great idea. Yep.
I know it's work, but I'm sure there's got to be a process that can be put in place to get that information recorded.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think once it's set up, it's not as bad.
Right.
Every site plan will tell how much it increases impervious surface. Of course, you also have to know whether the project was actually built. Some things are approved, but
Right.
have not been built. And
That's true.
it would take a lot of work to go through 6 years worth of site plans. But
Well, no, we're talking moving forward, Ted. We're talking about moving forward. As each plan comes in, it gets entered, and all that information gets entered, it's not as onerous a task to record it, but over time we actually get an accurate record.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We could do that as
Right.
well. We can prepare, the Environmental Commission can start recording the increase in impervious surface proposed in each site plan.
I don't know that we can do that. I feel like the town would have to do that, no?
Well, we only get the site plans if it's going for variance, right?
Right.
No, you get all planning board site plans. And those, the difference is basically, does something require a sufficient variance to have to go to the zoning board? Or is it basically a planning board site plan with incidental variances, such as exceeding the limit on impervious surface? But
I mean, one way to move forward with it is if you want to go back for the year 2021, for example, we could just look and see what site plans were given final approval. For example, you could just say, I would like a listing of all the projects that were given final approval by the planning board and the zoning board. And then you could use those and go through, and Ted's right, you'd have to figure out which ones were actually built. So you'd have to go through, but at least that kind of brings the list down to a more manageable list. And then moving forward, every time the Environmental Commission gets a site plan, we could record what the impervious coverage is. And then again, you'd have to ground truth it at the end of the year, but at least you'd have that recording to start off with.
So the town doesn't actually record that information?
I don't know what database they use. I can't say if I'm sure they have it in a database somewhere. I'm sure.
I would think they would want to know that.
Well, I put
I'm
it
not saying that we can't do it. I'm just surprised that they wouldn't already have that.
form. And the other thing to remember is that construction in a given year may reflect approvals from 5 years ago or more.
Right.
I mean, one of the biggest sources of construction, the only significant residential construction in the last few years has been the Summerfields development on the north side of Schoolhouse Lane, and that was approved, I don't know, 2006 or so. But because build out of a major development will typically last a number of years. Tell us whether Canal Walk is fully built out yet.
No, we're finished. We're finished, Ed.
Yeah, and that was approved 1998.
Yeah. It's definitely worth looking into see how to kind of construct that database moving forward. But at least if you start from here, we can figure out how to, best compile it for sure. Okay, so moving forward, like I said, the New Jersey Stormwater Management Plan, stormwater management rules have changed to require that green infrastructure be used. So that is going to definitely help with some of the runoff volume and the pollutant loading. But things we can do locally is these plans have already accounted for a 10% reduction goal of impervious surface. So when we move through, you'll see what that 10% reduction means. But that can include eliminating the impervious surface, which they've called depaving, which basically means just getting rid of impervious surfaces that are not necessary and letting them return to a vegetative state. It could also be converting impervious surfaces to pervious. So that could be removing pavement and replacing it with porous pavement, which is down here. So this picture down here is some pictures of porous pavement, the grass pavers, the interlocking concrete. That's another example. And those are able to hold the capacity of large trucks in terms of tonnage, but they do retain and treat stormwater. So those are always a good option. However, a lot more expensive as of right now.
Also, so much of the township has shale near the surface. So you ask a developer, well, have you looked into porous pavement? And they say, well, we looked into it, but the ground is basically impervious, so it won't work.
Right. That is another obstacle for sure. There are some areas where it's just not going to work, and we just kind of have to deal with that at that point. But that is one thing, is that to at least commit to reviewing the costs and the benefits of the permeable surfaces to see if they're an option. And then the last thing is I don't want to say the easier one, but it is easier than that. The disconnection of the impervious surfaces. So that's using rain gardens and rainwater harvesting and the tree planter boxes. So these are things that can be done on a small residential lot all the way up to the bigger lots. So if we want to look at the reduction in impervious coverage, how that leads to a reduction in runoff. This is from the 2021 plan. You can see if they impose a 10% reduction in impervious cover, they did it by Watershed. So in Heathco, Brook, for example, a 10% reduction in the impervious cover would lead to a 7.3 million gallon reduction in stormwater runoff volume. So just that 10%, it's a small amount of dealing with the impervious cover. However, it leads to a good sized change, and this is in 1 year. So it's a 10% reduction per year. So if that's kind of the goal we're shooting for, it's, you know, it's easier to kind of deal with numbers in this sense than it is to look at the whole big picture, because we want to slowly make the behavioral change as well. So again, that's the goal. 10% reduction in impervious coverage will lead to the projected annual reduction you see there. Okay. All right. So again, one thing we can do as the Environmental Commission and as other, you know, the Franklin Green Team and the Open Space Committee, things we can all do to kind of move this forward through the township is what I talked about before, designing the green infrastructure beyond the New Jersey's water quality storm. And we want to design all the projects to 3.34 inches of rain over a 24-hour period. So that type of system, whether it's a rain garden or a green roof or that is going to really hold the amount of water we need for the time we need, then slowly release it so that, you know, all the pollutants can be filtered out.
Tara, Tara, on that point, because the stormwater ordinance revisions are already making their way through the process now in the town, we can't affect this one, but we're going to do it again in a year because the state's got new changes coming. Do you think this is the kind of thing with this kind of data, we could show the land use committee, we could show the council that we in Franklin want to strengthen ours?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, you know, showing that this data is real, I think is going to really help. And I think also showing that these small reductions, they're not this onerous, crazy whole change in everything kind of thing, and that it can be done slowly and effectively. I think that will absolutely help. And all of this is right in line with the new updates to stormwater management rules. So it makes total sense.
If we did just this first bullet where our quality storm is 3.34 inches instead of 1.25. Will that achieve the 10% reduction?
That won't achieve the 10% reduction in impervious cover. It could lead, if some systems were converted to these green infrastructure systems, yes, that would achieve some of the impervious cover. I don't think that would do it on its own, but it would definitely go towards that 10%. And then, you know, once you start doing things like that, we can kind of start working on these projects where we get the smaller green infrastructure treatments, you know, closer to the source and, you know, in different areas of the town. So we can also work with residents. These can be done on open space properties, the township buildings, you know, so yes, I think that would contribute to it, and we could just kind of use the education to get to the rest.
Just think of the schools, how much impervious cover there is for schools.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Thank you.
Another important thing is to include educational signage at these green infrastructure projects when they're at municipal buildings, parks, and schools, because people do stop and read those and they really start to understand. Duke Farms actually did a study on this a while back, like a kind of an in-house study. And they somehow surveyed people who actually stopped and read these educational signs. And then I guess afterwards would ask them, hey, what did you retain from that sign you read? And a lot of them retained the information, and it was like, it became part of their thinking. So maybe moving forward, they're like, oh, you know what? I got to replace my driveway. Let me try and at least see how much this pervious pavement costs. That's really the first step that we're going for. The township has a great sign machine in DPW, so this is something that we can do in-house, is make these educational videos. So that's a good thing. And then the other thing is especially once we have this final portion of the plan done, is to maybe host a meeting or a seminar for the public that explains to everyone what we're doing and what are the cost benefits, the labor benefits, what are we achieving through the green infrastructure at all different levels, you know, what education have we provided. So it's really getting it out there into the public so that people understand, because it's a behavioral change that also needs to happen along with the infrastructure itself. All right. Oh, hold on. I'm having oh, here we go. Okay. I feel like I'm having a malfunction. So that's the impervious cover assessment. The next plan that they updated is now called the Green Infrastructure Action Plan. It was formerly called the Remediation Action Plan. And this is just a funny story, I'll tell you, that they told me. So the impervious cover assessment, the acronym is ICA, right? When they did the Remediation Action Plan, they decided to change the name, because if you say it's IC, it's like, it basically ends up being like ICRAP is what people were writing down. And so they changed the name because it was like, this is not really working for us. So that's why now we have this great new title, Green Infrastructure Action Plan. So again, same thing. It was originally completed in 2015, now updated for 2021. I listed out the methodology here for you to see. Now, the reason I'm doing that, the Green Infrastructure Action Plan is much more detailed than the impervious cover assessment. So this is going to really look at specific projects within the watershed and look at how can we affect total phosphorus, total nitrate, total suspended solids. What are the actual gallons at these sites? So this is what this is looking at. I'm going to show you this website in just a minute. Well, let me put it up right now since we're here. So on the website right now, this is like live for us. I mean, no one else knows about this, but when it's done, we'll be able to look at this. This is an online mapping system. So if anyone is interested from the public, or if we're just interested, you could click on the potential projects. There's 17 of them by watershed. And these are the projects that Rutgers has started to identify as areas that could use green infrastructure. So I know, Robin, you had mentioned the schools, right? So let's look at the Connerly Road School, for example. If you click on it, you can download this. Oh, can you not see it? Because I think I'm just sharing my, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Let me share my regular, hold on one second here.
Thanks.
I completely forgot. Hold on, I gotta share my whole screen. Give me one sec. Okay. Okay, can you see it now?
If you share the whole screen, the link will be clickable? No.
Possibly. I don't know, actually. Let me see. Let me see. So can you guys all see this here?
Yep. Yeah, but
okay,
it still
so
has a picture. We cannot.
We had it a minute ago.
Okay, so this is the link here, but just so you know, I'll send you the PowerPoint and then you can click on it and go through it as yourselves as you like. But there's all the sites are here. So as I mentioned, there's 17 of them. You know, you could zoom in if you want to the sites, right? But
I think we received this in 2015. No?
This was the 2015. A lot of these sites have either been updated or changed based on the new data, right? So for example, Lower Raritan, if we look at Connerly Road School, you can download the report.
I remember the schools, yes.
So Connerly School is still in there. Some of the recommended treatments have changed for each school, for each site. So say if someone did one of the sites, they've been removed and maybe a new treatment recommended or maybe not at all. But Connerly School did stay relatively the same from the last report. But this is what the Green Infrastructure Action Plan is. It gives you the site, what the site area is, what the impervious coverage is at that site. It also will tell you what the existing load is for total phosphorus, total nitrate, total suspended solids. And then it looks at what the runoff volume is based on those two storms that we looked at before.
So here's my comment. As Ted mentioned that we have shale, and when we have shale, then the porous pavement is not helping. But this report is routinely showing for every site a portion of pervious asphalt, pervious pavement. So I think that it must work even when we have, so to speak, impervious underlay. So
well, yeah, so they do say in this one, for example, they say that additional soil assessment is recommended before doing this. However, if there's clay there is ways that you can kind of like, it's more money, but you can kind of break through it and work with the, kind of change the under drains and look at this, change the soil types that can be there. However, it costs a lot of money, but in situations for schools or municipal buildings, there is grant money available. So it's more of an option, I think, which is why they like to keep it in. But in Connerly Road, as you can see, there is areas of pervious pavement proposed. There's areas for the bioretention system, which is the rain garden. It shows you where the drainage area currently is. And each project has one of these, project sheets basically to go with it. So I won't go through them all only because, you guys can all go through them and see. However, there are 17 altogether, 17 sites, 5 of the watersheds, and some of them are at the Franklin Department of Public Works building. They also look at the Eternal Life Church, the Franklin Street Center. So they really tried to put in a mix of properties that are highly visible and that would have kind of the most impact
Yeah.
for what can be done.
DPW doesn't even have solar on the roof.
Right. That's true. That is true. Yep. So that's just the website there that I wanted to show you. Let me get back here. Okay. So their methodology, as I mentioned, you can read it here, but long story short is that they first looked at all of the mapping online, then they went out and ground truthed it with their staff. They applied these aerial loading coefficients, which are basically numbers that DEP created for phosphorus, total nitrate, total suspended solids that can be applied to kind of project out of these stormwater gallons, what is the pollutant loading for each of these areas? So it's a projection, but it has been known to be relatively accurate. They did do preliminary soil assessments of each of these sites. However, there are some that need to be further tested, of course, if we choose to do that. They looked at the drainage patterns. They then calculated the reduction in stormwater and runoff loads. They prepared cost estimates for each of these, and they did some very basic site mapping, which is what I showed you for the green infrastructure plan. This is a map that shows those sites that I just showed you on the live map. And then this is a summary that I put together from the Green Infrastructure Action Plan, just kind of to show very quickly, instead of having to look, for you all to have to look through every single one of those to kind of get to this. I just put together a table of the number of projects recommended by subwatershed, the area in acres, the reduction volume potential, and then the potential removal of total suspended solids. I chose that one because that does have a lot of effect on the water bodies, because once those total suspended solids get in there, it changes not only the habitat there, it also changes the ambient temperature. It can change the other erosion properties of the stream. It leads to the water quality being severely degraded. So that's an important one to look at. And then again, looking at the total cost of if we were to implement every single project that they recommended exactly how we did it, the total cost per subwatershed, and then an overall. So, just to look at one, for example, in Mile Run, there's 8 projects recommended over 13 acres, but it would lead to a reduction volume of 1,120,450 gallons of stormwater. 2,556 less pounds of total suspended solids that would enter the local waterways. And implementing all of that would cost $1,708,100. So it's just like an interesting way to look at it and kind of look at it. I mean, these can be much more detailed, but this is really a summary.
The 1.7 million is kind of the externality cost of our lifestyle so far.
I mean, right now too, I know the cost of materials is high, so maybe it could be lower further down the road, but yeah, very true. So the next steps. So just for your knowledge, what we've accomplished so far. So these documents have now been updated. We have the most recent data. I have gone through them word by word. I submitted a lot of comments. My comments were incorporated into this final plan, and I encourage you all to look through them and submit any comments, because Rutgers is happy to, work with us on that. Sustainable Jersey required that we submit an interim grant report, which I submitted about 2 months ago, and that just basically shows, how we're plugging along with the process. 17 total projects have been identified, and they are going to be looked at in much greater detail in this next plan. So that next plan is going to include actual engineering drawings of these proposed projects, cost estimates that are, we're going to get down to dollars and cents with them. They're going to be much more detailed. They'll probably look much more closely at the pollutant loading, maybe look at some zoning regulations to see if there's any obstructions there or obstacles. So that's going to be a much more deeper dive into that. One interesting thing I wanted to just keep you all apprised of is that Mayor Kramer signed the Mayor's Monarch Pledge on April 27th, which is a program through the National Wildlife Federation. So one of the things we can do to achieve both of those goals, as well as to earn some points for Sustainable Jersey certification, is when we're implementing some of these planter boxes and rain gardens, we're just careful that we choose plants that not only can treat and retain stormwater, but that are also pollinator friendly. And there's a whole list available of them. So that's one easy thing we can do to kind of hit 3 different targets with the same amount of labor and the same amount of cost. So that works out great. And then lastly, the final draft green infrastructure plan I have been promised for the beginning of June. Once it's received, I'll review it in depth, and then I'm happy to come back and talk to you all and the Open Space Advisory Committee about it and how we can, start thinking about implementing it. I think that is it for me. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them or go back or, anything you want.
Tara, just to be clear, the $20,000 grant from Sustainable Jersey, that paid for this study, or is some of those funds available to do the actual?
That was just the study.
It mostly pays. So the amount of the 3 studies, I believe, I want to say was around $17,500 for the studies. Okay. So we have about $2,500 back. So we should be able to put a rain garden in probably at one of the municipal buildings or the open spaces. But once we have this green infrastructure plan, I think we can choose what the best space is to do that. And we can do one of those smaller projects. But having these plans in place do open up other grant opportunities for us, which is good.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, there will be more money available from Sustainable Jersey. The National Wildlife Federation, Audubon has money, so we should be able to get some more.
We could have a project for the Rutgers Prep kids. We could pay or use the grant money for the plants, and they would execute the planting.
Absolutely. Yep. That's exactly, and they could do the maintenance. Yes, that's absolutely something that could be done.
Do we have any project in that area of Rutgers Prep?
There is, yeah, there was a recommendation for Rutgers Prep. Let me, where is it? Here we go, Rutgers Prep. Let's see what they said. So yes, they propose, let me get to the map.
Yeah.
Some pervious pavement.
I don't see any rain garden.
Oh, hold on, I keep doing the same. Yeah, there's no rain garden. They did not propose a rain garden here. I'm not sure why that is. They probably could put one. I'm sure there's space where they could put or maybe a rain barrel.
Well, I would rather do it where it was designed. So I wouldn't make artificial design just because we have volunteers from Rutgers Prep, but there is a terrain, so there might be some reason.
Yeah, I'm sure we could figure that out, or if they're willing. I mean, there's definitely things we can do to work with them as well. But and there's other schools that have been proposed too.
Oh
yeah. See if I can get back. McAfee School, Connerly, Franklin Middle School.
Do we have high school? Franklin High School? Because the older kids are more likely to have the
you do.
The power.
We have Franklin Park School. Let me see here. Let me go to this. I don't know if we have a high school. I don't recall seeing Franklin Middle School at Hamilton Street campus and Health Prep.
They built one a few years ago.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
No, but they built a new one, couple maybe 2, 3
Yeah,
years ago.
I don't see that. I don't see
Oh.
Franklin High School is not on here. However, doing something at, one of the churches might be nice because that's a very visible space as well. We can definitely do something, even if it's not proposed here. If we want to put something at one of our parks or open spaces, that's a great place to do it. Here's that Franklin Park Volunteer Fire Company. Or is this one it? Nope. Okies Brook.
I
Yeah,
think we
Franklin
should do
Park
it
Volunteer.
in the middle of Department of Public Works.
Right.
Rip off center part of the pavement and put a little garden inside.
All right. Let's see what they proposed for there. Yeah, they proposed a rain garden there actually, as well as some pervious pavement. So I
Oh,
would say,
look at this.
yeah,
Ah,
I
so
would say if you have a chance, I'll send you all the link with, go through it at, and when you have a chance. And then once we get this green infrastructure
they even
strategic
put here
plan.
pervious pavement here
Mhm.
section. I think they recently repaved. No, Ted, can you comment? DPW.
There's been something in the budget, I can't remember which budget, but yes, for repaving their
Mhm.
parking lot.
Yeah, but if they have done it and they didn't use pervious, then that's it. It'll be very costly to repeat
Yeah.
off fresh asphalt.
I hear that.
Actually, can you?
Up any
Well,
asphalt,
mind.
but you wouldn't want to do it for fresher.
Right. So that's all I have for right now. Like I said, in June, I'm expected to have this plan and it should have a lot more detail that we can really sift through, but that's where we're at now. And yeah, I guess that's it. And again, like I said, these 17 projects are a starter. It's not, doesn't mean we can't do them elsewhere. Doesn't mean we have to do every single one of these. It's just really they really try to look at a bunch of different uses in different areas across the township that would be visible.
I think it's a tremendous amount of work. Thank you, Tara. I mean, it's
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to do it.
Yes.
I'm glad. Yeah. And we can definitely use it to create a spreadsheet or something further down the line. I think that's a really good idea. As long as we keep it going, it'll be a good way to present data and really look at it through a bunch of different lenses.
Yeah, I think if we went and looked at the COs that were issued in any one calendar year, that way we're building with what's built, or working with what's built, and look at their plans, the final plans, final.
Yeah.
And we can load that into the spreadsheet.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, building rain garden could be also projects for Amy's peers.
I missed who?
Well,
right? Do we have project for her because she needs for the Rutgers Stewardship program?
I think we've missed the timeline on that project. I think she needs to have it done long before Bob Warnlocker will have approved her. So,
Well, they don't have deadline for the project.
for the internship,
Oh yeah,
isn't
it's
it tied
open
to?
book.
Isn't it
No?
tied to her certification? She doesn't get the certificate.
Yeah, but she doesn't have to have it now. I mean,
you can talk to her about
I
that.
shouldn't speak on her behalf, but I went through this by myself. So.
Okay. So thank you. If we can, let's move on to the Webpage Subcommittee. Do you guys have an update?
I'm sorry, can I just say, if you guys don't need me to stay on, I was gonna get off unless you need me for anything.
As far as I'm concerned, no, you don't need to hang around.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night. I'll let you
You're
know when
welcome.
I have.
Thank you
Presentation.
for joining us.
Oh, no problem. I'll let you know when I have the last part in. Have a
Okay.
good night. All right, take care.
All right.
thanks, Tara.
You're welcome.
Yeah, as I said, the next item is the we sort of put Tara ahead so that she has other things to do. But the EC Webpage Subcommittee.
How about the plans review?
Let's review.
Oh, you're right. We skipped that. So,
Okay.
Paul,
Yes.
I guess you were sort of thrust into the lead here. So did you get, I guess, an alert from what's this?
Mark? No, I went back
You
on
went
the
and looked.
websites and looked. And
That's good.
the ones that are on the agendas are ones that we've looked at already.
All right, beautiful. So why don't you share with us what you recommend and what you learned? And I don't know if anybody else is, if Stan wants to pull something up and let's look at it in more detail, but we'll work our way through it.
Well, the zoning board is gonna look at that big church on South Middlebush. And that's one we've commented on and marked it as well. And the others are things that we've commented on and sent in the written comments already.
All
We
right,
don't have anything to review tonight.
I didn't see any new ones, no.
all right. Well, good. So that comes from us being on top of it and getting ahead of the game a little, I guess.
Yes.
All right, beautiful. Okay, and now we can go to the webpage subcommittee.
Arnie, is it
Then-
okay if I speak on that one?
Feel
Uh,
free.
Well, Arnie and I met with Bob McQueen and Krista the other day. Sadly, Jessica couldn't join us, but Krista has done fair bit of work on our website. And we agreed the next important thing to happen is for all of us to go test drive the website. And we will meet again with Bob and Krista when, I can't remember whether I guess we picked a date a month out. So could we really ask everybody to
I
find the
will, I
time?
will happily test drive it because I think it's electric.
Oh.
But if you would, and maybe go in once a week, don't do it in just one fell swoop, because you'll see different things. If you'll take 10 minutes one day and 10 minutes another, and just pop an email to Jessica, Arnie, and me with what you find, and then we'll sit down with a master list with everybody. But if everybody does it, we'll all notice different things, which will be helpful. Like Diane brought up the fact she can't find the ERI.
No, I
That
found
was-
it. It's just the wrong one still. It's still the, they
Right.
haven't put updated version. It's
Yeah,
still
and
on the planning
Krista
board.
told us she had it and she would do that. So rather than going through our old list, we told her we'd bring her a new list of what we find lacking. So does that sound right, Arnie? Am I speaking accurately?
Are you saying it's
You
live already?
actually almost perfectly mimicked what I was going to say, that everybody should take a look at it, and if they have any comments or questions, to respond to you, Jess, or me. The
Yeah,
IT department has made a lot of, I'm sorry, we have 12 people talking, or what's going on?
Can somebody mute Paul? It's coming from Paul. Jay,
Lost
Stan,
my
it
train
is
of
live.
thought there. So I guess
Sean, your
IT
turn.
has made a lot of changes. So it's incumbent on us to take a look at it. One specific item that was brought up was the lack of our newer resolutions still not being on there. So we need to take a look at that. I'll be looking at that. And there was also something about maps and photos was discussed, but it was, barely touched on, something to talk about. I don't think this is the time to be looking at it right now. I think this is the time for everybody to look at it on their own time instead of spending a lot of time on this.
We do
Okay.
need Walter to update the goals and objectives, make sure they're accurate.
Yeah, that's been talked about before, so I'm sure Walter will get to that when he does.
Look at the archive.
Yeah, but how about we not spend another 45 minutes looking
I'm
at this
with you on that.
this
You can
website?
ignore that I'm sharing the page, okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to ignore that you're sharing the page, and my
Don't
point
share
is,
your page then, Stan. You don't have to share your page.
yeah, I'm
You
just
can
saying,
look
this is,
privately.
yeah, this is something that we can all look at on our own time, and then make our your comments to Jess, Robin, and I, and then at our next meeting, if we need to share the page and go over it, that's fine.
Can I ask
It's
one quick
miles
question?
better.
Can I ask you one quick question? This,
What was that?
can I just ask one question about
Sure.
this?
Sure.
Is there anything in particular you want us to look for? Do you want us to just say like if there's something missing or if something doesn't look right? That what kind of feedback are you looking for?
All of the above.
Okay. All right.
Look for bugs, right?
Okay. That I will do.
Keep in mind, from a look and feel perspective, we've tried to make some logical changes, but they're going to revamp the entire website, which will change all of that. So
Okay.
focus on for
Content.
Okay.
yeah, focus on the, I guess it's function, not form.
Okay. That makes sense.
And the content, you know, are we highlighting the right things?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. This subcommittee has been very busy. And next we get into site plan checklist. I guess
I can-
Robin,
Yeah, I can give a brief update on that, and hopefully Diane and I can put our heads together in the next couple of weeks. Arnie was approached Mark Healy on our behalf, asking about any environmental checklist that the township might use right now. And he was very clear that there is no checklist that is required by the EC, nor can there be. He didn't offer whether, all he said was, here are the checklists we use. But he did go on to add that if we wanted to create a green checklist, he attached information from Sustainable Jersey, which was very helpful, in which they have a model green checklist and they have a model steps for creating an enabling ordinance that would require a green checklist. And you might remember I shared last time that some of the municipalities do have an ordinance that requires it. Other municipalities have a checklist that they offer the applicant that's just nice to have. And then there are other municipalities that just have an internal checklist where the EC uses it for themselves. So we have what we got just recently from Sustainable New Jersey. We do have the 3 municipalities checklist. The Sustainable New Jersey gives 3 different municipalities checklists. So I think Diane and I can comb through that, but I still would ask if you could, between now and the next meeting, look at that one master checklist I created when I typed all the questions from all the lists we had at that time, and just circle the ones that you think would be helpful for our own internal use. Because I think if we can start by building one for our own internal use, and if we find it really helpful, and then we could look at, do we want to create an enabling ordinance? So there's now that just came out this morning, Anjec has a resource paper on site plan review checklists. So there's a lot of information all of a sudden coming together that I think points to the fact that this is the way of the future, and there are already municipalities doing it, and we can do baby steps. So please try to take a few minutes and look at what I sent you last time, and I will send an expanded version of that once I go through this new stuff that we just got. And then Diane and I perhaps can collate all that and figure out what are the 15 burning questions or the 20 burning questions that this group thinks they want to know, and realize that on this master list are things we've never talked about before, but maybe we should. So take a look at that, and this is not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a slow project. But
Robin, I sent you my comments. But
yes,
if you're going to have an expanded list, I'd go back and look again, but I'd be happy to.
yeah, I think I'm going to go through this, and if there's new material, we'll add to it. But Anjec has got it, Sustainable Jersey's got it, these municipalities are doing it. So I think it's going to be one of our to-dos, and it's going to take a long time to do it full bore. But I think even just in the short term, it could help us review site plans more effectively. So stay tuned. Diane, anything you want to add?
No, I don't have anything to add right now.
Thanks, Walter.
All right, if we move along here, let's see what's the next one is here.
Shade
The
tree.
Shade Tree Commission Joint Subcommittee update.
Arnie, you want to speak to that? I think they're tired of hearing my voice.
I don't really have much to say about it. No.
All
I
right,
have
well,
nothing to say.
I'll just add that Arnie and I met with Bob and Ellen last week, and we were talking about the tree ordinance in town, and hasn't been updated since 2015. And I offered to look at other tree ordinances out there now that are very current and maybe stronger than ours, and try to look at what we might want to see in our own tree ordinance going forward that might include things like incentives for green roofs as a trade-off for replacing trees. So more to come on that.
Okay, very good. And next we have, volunteer opportunities, one for the Environmental Commission update, and I think sort of centered around Amy Spears' letter to our email to us indicating she'd like to volunteer. Is she on today? I don't think so.
No, she's got a Monday night class
Okay, all right,
for 6 weeks or something.
all right. But what I did, I sent an email to Bob Bunlocker, sort of expressing, our thoughts and her wishes, and he got back to me, and we talked briefly. Really, what he has in mind is something that sort of answers some of our earlier wishes and I'll call it structural type things that would benefit the EC, but it's in a new budget that they won't meet until, I believe it's the 8th. Is that right, Chad? Oh,
Yeah, it'll be
essentially,
formally introduced at the next meeting, and then probably, I don't know whether it'll be 2 weeks or 4 weeks before it's passed, and then it's
wow.
20 days after that before action can be taken under it. So it
Yeah.
will take a while. Yeah.
Okay, but essentially, because it has not been approved, it probably will be, but he can't give us all the details. But he is supportive, and he has a particular plan in mind. I think we will be happy about. He didn't share everything with me, but he asked that, except for a few things, that we sort of hold off until the budget is approved, so we know if it's for real or not. And I don't know what more I can say, but it does include Amy Spears. Let's put it that way. So I guess we've begun to, or we have continued to communicate with her, and she's continued to sort of volunteer, but formally, it would have to happen once the budget is approved. And I don't know whether council or we or Bob, formally put something on paper, but she's a volunteer. The township has certain responsibilities for interns, and I don't know exactly how it works. I understand that Mark Healy has an intern or has interns on a routine basis, and I don't know exactly how that works, but I would imagine that her appointment, if you will, or her coming on board would be very similar to what Mark Healy does. That's about it. Ted, I don't know if you have anything additional.
I know nothing about this. Yeah, I do know that Mark Healy and engineering regularly have interns from Rutgers through a program there that's run by Dan Van Abs. So I don't quite understand why a volunteer activity should depend on the new budget, but I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah. I think what he has in mind does have a structure that would it would follow that it would work out that way. So to the extent that we can continue to use Amy's knowledge and her help, hopefully she can stay close. And I don't know, it looks like we're at least a month or two away before we know for sure if the budget is improved, which includes the new plan. That's about it. If somebody else has any questions, I can't answer. I'll try to get the answer for you. But basically, this is sort of a new area for us.
Well, I don't think we'd be talking about budget with Amy Spears. It might be for another project. But I don't think there was a budget here. And unlike other academic internships, it's not like we have to provide supervision and verify, that it qualifies for academic credit. This is much more casual than that. Am I right, Stan?
Yes. And as I mentioned, she could do rain garden. That would be legitimate project.
If it interests her.
If it's interesting,
Well, I
yeah.
think a realization of a rain garden will probably start with Public Works excavating a hole. And then after that, volunteers can plant plants.
Yeah, but portion of it is planning. I mean,
Yeah,
the excavation is execution that, she will say, dig here, simply put.
But I
And
think
hopefully they would.
Amy's working with us. I think may include various projects, but I would think that we or someone would have to work out a series of projects or work plan that would run for at least a year. I don't know how long her project would run, and so
I would think that recording of that we just talked about with Tara would be a good starting spot.
Absolutely.
I think her internship is much smaller than that, having read her emails.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But
Well,
she might like to volunteer on a larger scale project. We
Very
are
good.
talking about her without her here.
okay.
The project
Nothing
should
else?
have originality components. So speaking of the rain garden, if the design is her design, that would be the originality.
And let me just say that as we have gone along over the year, we were saying we've looked around, we've looked at other townships. We think this type of structure and what have you would be good, and that we might voice it to Von Locker and something. Well, it's not in the budget, what have you, but it doesn't mean that it won't be. So let's continue to be vocal and express our wishes and wants for the EC. And before you know it, maybe some of them will come true. So thank you for, I'll call it, thinking inside and outside the box. Thank you. All right. If we go forward, it's getting a little late here.
I remember that Arnie wanted to have conversation about something.
Well, that's the next item on the agenda, the Franklin warehouses.
Oh, yeah. Idling motor vehicles. Exactly.
Sure. So With all the existing trucking warehouses in Franklin and many, many more being built, I suggest that we recommend to the council that all warehouse properties be required through an ordinance or township directive that DEP no idling signs be installed at these sites. At their entrances, loading and unloading bays, office area, entrances, doors, and parking areas of each site. I also suggest we recommend that the council consider requesting the county health department work with the DEP to perform routine monitoring of these sites to assure the regulations are adhered to limit the amount of idling vehicles exhaust. There are county health departments that are already doing this. So we can't stop these trucks from coming and going, but we can limit the amount of pollution they emit so they don't sit there for hours just idling. As a side note, idling trucks have also become a big source of noise complaints in New Jersey. Enforcement in this program includes educating drivers and truck owners as well as facility operators and owners, and also includes issuing violations when appropriate. Truck owners can be fined for idling. The property owners can also be fined for allowing this to occur on their property. However, if a property owner installs the appropriate DEP signs, they become exempt from fines if a truck operator is caught idling on their property. So installing signs is a large incentive for the property owners to do this. Warehouses aren't the only type of facility monitored for idling vehicles, but as a growing concern for air pollution in Franklin from these vehicles, most of which have diesel engines coming and going to these warehouses, the worst kind of air pollution from motor vehicles, I believe this would be a good starting point for this program. I sent everyone 2 links about this. One is about purchasing signs, and one summarizes the DEP idling requirements. If we decide to make these recommendations to the council, we can send them these links. I can also provide the name of the person at the DEP who runs this program and give them his email address as well. This was a program that I ran for the last 3 years while I was working for Union County, and it was a pretty effective program. And I just, again, think with all of these warehouses coming in, it's something, trucks will stay overnight and they'll sit there and idle overnight. And sometimes they'll start them up in the morning if they weren't idling overnight, and they'll just run them for a half an hour in the morning because that's what they want to do.
Is it really common practice, this excessive idling?
It's very common practice until somebody knocks on their door and says you can't do this.
Is it related?
If they let me just finish. If they get a warning from an inspector, usually you get a warning, and if it happens again, then they'll get a fine. And the first offense is usually $250. Second is $500, and the third is $1,000. So they learn pretty quickly not to do this.
Is it happening?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Arne, I just have a question. The anti-idling is currently part of the Somerset County Health Department CHA job requirement, right? They don't have to do anything different to do the enforcement here. We just have
I have not heard yet as to whether they do, if they are required to do it. Each program for the Somerset County Health Department, it's sort of an a la carte thing. Some counties do this, some counties don't. So I'm not sure if they are doing this. It's also something that the police can do enforcement on this also, not something that they really look to do. But since there is this issue in Franklin with all of these warehouses, it might be something that Franklin can push for the county, since we did send our health department to the county, maybe if the county isn't doing this program, we can push to get it done. And keep in mind, it's not only warehouses that this gets done at, it's other types of places. Sometimes they go to places because of complaints. whether it's convenience stores that are doing it. Sometimes it's school buses idling in different places, and enforcement is done on those also.
If
But
it's
I'm just
not
saying that I think this is something that we can make a recommendation to the Township Council and send them the links that we have that tell them about the signs, that tell them about the New Jersey idling requirements, that talk about how county health departments can do the enforcement on these. And if they are concerned enough about the air pollution that these are many, if not most of these trucks are diesel powered. And as we know, diesel emissions are linked to asthma, cancer, heart disease, stroke. They're the worst of the worst when it comes to spewing out emissions. So
Arnie, if say that the county decides to take on the anti-idling, is this something that they would have to do in every town in Somerset County, regardless if their health department is part of the county health department?
well, the way it worked, and I can only talk about the way it worked with Union County. When we did it, the DEP provided us with a list of facilities that they saw as problems, but we also came up with our own list of different sites. Some towns had no sites. Some towns had several sites. So we had maybe 60 or 70 different sites on our list, and we rotated going to them. And if some sites violations were being found at the same sites frequently, then we would go to them more frequently.
I was thinking that if Franklin like went to the county health department and said, we would like to see this program implemented, you probably get support from Hillsborough, Montgomery, Bridgewater, like every other town would probably feel that they want to be part of it too.
Well, it's a matter of the county. It really isn't municipality driven. It's if the county is doing this program, then it's incumbent on them to go where these sites are. If Somerset County isn't doing it, then this would be a good way for the township to push for them to do it, and get other towns involved who might want to, help push Somerset County to get this done.
Thanks, Marnie.
I think that right now, because of COVID-19, is a good time for counties to increase their health departments. Although this is, well, it's not totally unrelated to COVID-19, because if you have asthma due to diesel exhaust, you're in more danger. I would suggest that Arnie do a write-up of this, making all the points you've just made, and then the EC can send this to council formally through Anne Marie.
I can do that.
I second that idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good item. We've done it before.
I have a
Excellent.
question. So you mentioned that only the county can do the inspection. Do they need equipment? I don't think so, right?
No,
Because they could as well delegate.
no, they can't
Um,
delegate to the municipalities.
No, there is a law.
Well, they just don't have the authority. The counties have the authority.
Yeah, but I mean, counties can
The
hire someone.
DEP delegates it to the county. The county doesn't have the authority to delegate it to the municipality.
Because you know what I was about to suggest, we have idling electric vehicles. Then, if you want to enforce against fumes and you are using gas vehicles, it's counterproductive. So it's much better if you arrive with electric car and say, hey, you are idling,
Yeah.
Yeah, Arnold, specifically, I didn't hear you say it, but along with the I don't know, you're talking about what's already in place, but maybe we could, I'll call it expanded by suggesting that these organizations or these trucking companies consider electric vehicles and other alternative cleaner fuel vehicles as a way of also combating, the emissions from the vehicles problem.
Well, I think that's a great idea, Walter, but it's not really our place to tell those companies what to do. But if they get enough violations over time, maybe that will help them think about, well, the next time I replace one of our trucks, maybe we'll get an electric vehicle.
Right? Exactly.
I don't know whether electric trucks of this magnitude are available yet, but
Ask
certainly
Chinese.
over the next decade, there's certainly going to be a lot of pressure to substitute electric vehicles for.
New Jersey has very clear plan. And today the biggest producer of electric trucks are China. BYD. Do you know what the abbreviation means? Build your dreams. BYD. And it's
Or
Chinese.
America's back.
I can chime
Germany
in here.
also has some, yeah.
I think domestic production should be encouraged.
Well, as long as we have Biden, it's coming.
There are trucks now being planned with fuel cells to power the big trucks. Izon is a company doing that now.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you
Well,
sharing
I
that.
think that's all a great idea to do that, but I think we need to deal with what the problem at hand is now.
Right now. Yeah,
Well,
I
the
just
immediate.
diesel trucks around for another 20 years.
Yes.
Wow.
I just posted in the chat, Somerset County Health Department does have a whole page on idling. It says
Oh,
they do
That's a
enforcement.
wonderful thing.
They do enforcement for idling and they have signs available, it says.
Well, that's another thing. I don't know how that will work with them. I know that on the one of the links that I sent to you guys, and Stan, I sent it again to you today. I sent you a separate email with the 2 links. One of them had to do with the idling signs. And it's my understanding each of the idling signs are about $15 each, but there's also
Easy peasy.
yeah, well, there's also a $17 shipping charge for it. But if you buy a bunch of them, then you get a tremendous reduction in the cost of the shipping. So you can buy 25 signs for about $400. So these large facilities, these huge facilities, you can't just put one sign up. You have to put them all over the place. You put them along the fence lines. You put them over by each of the bays or every other bay so the drivers can see them. You put one by the office door so when the drivers get out to go talk to people in the office about what they're delivering or picking up, they see the sign right there on the door. So a large facility like one of these Amazon facilities, they could easily put up 25 signs, no problem, to cover that site. And again,
Okay.
I don't know if I mentioned this, but I think I may have, but if I didn't mention it, companies that put up these signs, if there are trucks that are found in violation on their property, once they put up signs in their property, the truck driver or owner can still get the fine, but the property owner becomes exempt from the
You
from
mentioned that.
getting hit.
Yeah, you did.
Okay,
You mentioned that. Yeah.
okay.
And on the Somerset County website, the link for signs takes you to the DEP site. So it's all the same signage.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the cost is only for the play card. If you want to have a post, then you have to, it's additional cost.
Okay.
So
Very
we have
good.
a plan.
Yeah, so I'll put something together and I will pass it by you guys to approve it and we'll go from there.
And hopefully, since the
Okay.
county says they are enforcing the idling, it might be not that difficult to get them to do it here.
Right.
Well, I would think that again, it would be a part of their rounds going to different places. Then I would think the new places that we have would be priorities since they've never been there before. And hopefully once they've been there and they've explained the situation, then those signs will go up and hopefully we have less idling.
Do you think the county recommends the signage?
Well, that's
That
part of the
part
program. What they do is they get a grant.
Okay.
The county gets grants for all different programs from the DEP.
Got
And
it.
this is called one of those grants that you don't have to take, but you can. And if you take it, then part of what you're doing is educating the drivers, educating the property owners, and talking to them about the idling signs, giving them the information about how to get the idling signs, and obviously telling the property owners that if you put these signs up, then if violations are found on your property, you won't get hit by a fine. So what better incentive for them to be putting up those signs than being exempt from getting hit with penalties?
The health department, they should go to Home Depot. There are signs.
The
with no
signs that
idling,
the signs that
and
they would
people-
get, the signs
and
that they
people
would
are
get, the signs that they
still
would
idling.
get would be from the DEP. They are DEP signs that they
Yeah,
are
what I'm
required to
trying to
get.
say that in front of Home Depot, there are lots of those signs
Right.
prohibiting, reminding people that there is no idling, but people still go there and they do idle, and more than 3 minutes.
I'm sure you're right, Stan.
Yeah, we got to
Because
start.
the county can't be everywhere to do this enforcement, so they do the best they can. We had 3 people that were doing this enforcement program, I think 3 days a week for a county that had
Did you go to Home Depot?
400,000 people. We went to Home Depot and we went to other places as well. Yes.
This is
Okay.
great, Arnie. Thank you.
All right. Why don't we move on to the plastic ban education subcommittee? I know that Arnold brought up, an idea that could be part of a plan that, could be put together, but a subcommittee is sort of loosely formed. Who's leading this particular discussion? I know Robin has volunteered her Zoom platform, but Robin, what are your thoughts? What do you see right now?
Well, I think Maria was the first to step forward,
Yeah.
and
You're right. I'm sorry. You're correct.
I'd like to kind of follow her lead. I think I got enough where I'm leading.
Maria.
Well, I would, in this subcommittee, I will obviously need to the feedback of the other members, because to make a campaign that that addresses the demographics of the town, and I think we were going also to bring Mrs. Spears to be part of this
Yes.
campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
And we were on the planning of the day of the meeting. We were planning the day that we were going to meet, that is potentially happening during this week.
Tomorrow, we just hadn't heard from Arnie, but we had tomorrow on the docket. Arnie, can you do tomorrow?
I think we had tomorrow tomorrow is the 4th. We have a 4 p.m. We have a 4 p.m. meeting tomorrow.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, obviously we can have more, continue to share your input, Maria, with Maria, and we can have, when I say we, more for the next meeting and anything in the interim. But we're also looking for some guidance from ANJAC. I don't know when that might roll out, but we can still move ahead.
Yeah, we could look at their website now and see what there is. And if anybody else sees any other municipalities' education efforts,
Mhm.
we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Absolutely.
You know, copy it, get the link, take a picture of a sign, whatever it is. And, you know, if you're in Bridgewater shopping, take a picture of whatever you see somebody else doing.
Okay.
Oh, I agree. No need to reinvent the wheel, and so we can move forward. So thanks, Maria, for taking the lead on that. And tomorrow at 4 p.m., Robin has sent out the link, so we can take it from there. My question is,
Thank you.
if
Thank you, Robin.
yeah, if you know, if somehow we wanted to you know, have meetings and what have you, and could the WebEx platform be used? I know it's not as easy as the others, but is it free to us as subcommittee meetings, or only the main meetings like this one?
I guess that's a question of Bob McQueen, if we gave
Wait.
this.
You want to use the WebEx for other subcommittee meetings or something?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
Mr.
possibly.
It's perfectly
you know.
doable.
It is, okay.
Oh, yeah. Because me and Jessica, we have access, we can set up meetings.
Great.
All right, and we don't need Bob,
Yeah.
we don't
It's
need
with
pre-approval.
it's just
As long as we're
additional
meeting up,
complication, don't ask.
Can,
well,
and
I
Stan,
agree.
can you
Okay,
appoint,
all right.
Stan, can you appoint someone else to be host so you or Jessica don't have to be at each of these meetings?
Well,
Why not?
Just a thought. I'm
Yeah,
taking
no, I
care
appreciate that. As someone who works full time, I appreciate that.
I'll take
yeah,
care of
we
tomorrow.
certainly-
What can happen that when me or Jessica open the meeting, we can, during the meeting, transfer the host to someone else and walk away.
Oh.
But to open it, to start it, I think it has to be one of us.
Right, so a
Jessica,
4
right?
o'clock meeting, if there's a 4 o'clock meeting and you're both working, that's not gonna work.
all
So
right,
we'll use my
Well,
Zoom.
but we would set up the meeting such that you could be the. Wait a second. Can we set up, Jessica? Can we set up another meeting from the profile and make host anyone from the EC?
I'm not sure. It's something we would have to test, but it is 9:15 at night, and I'm
I'm
been
done.
worked
Okay.
a full day, so I'd really love it if we
Okay,
could test this
sure.
another time.
all right, very good. But at least you know, I think we have a little lead here, but it's nice that we are, and I suspect that we will be receiving a lot of input and what have you from ANJAC and other communities. So as Robin has said, look around, and we won't be ashamed to just, you know, duplicate if necessary to get what we need. All right.
Glad-
All right, if we go down to old business, I know that a lot of these things are, we just want to keep them on the table. But again, I want to remind you that we are thinking about environmental stewardship awards. Now, I remember we had some brief discussion. Did someone bring up a particular?
Yes, yes.
Paul did. Well,
I brought up the center school that has solar cells on the parking lot and on the roof. They've covered 100% of their parking lot.
Okay, yeah,
Which school?
It's not 100% of their parking lot. It's a substantial
Okay,
part of the.
I'll give you that.
Not all of it.
Okay,
According to the plans.
Which
And
school?
it's
Which
just
school
been
is
built
it?
yet.
It's called the
So do
center
we have a-
school.
Center.
CENTER.
Yes,
Okay,
it's off Apcar, right near the
Side which is
near
all
Western Canal Road and Riverview.
okay. Well, good.
I was
So
sneezing.
that's for the community or I'll call it industry if you want. And
Yep.
then we want to look for an individual, if there's such a thing. So continue to think about it. Okay. And there was one other item on there. Stan, have you begun to think about 2022 stream cleanup?
Oh, come on. How about
Somebody
23?
mentioned that the
Okay.
Seeley's Brook site needs it again.
Yeah. Okay.
They all need it at least once a year. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you can just
Yeah.
toss a coin, you know.
It'll be interesting to see what the plastic ban does in terms of how rapidly those
Well,
sites.
guys, but remember, most of the garbage that we find are bottles.
Yeah, you're right.
It's actually not so much the plastic bags. And they
You're right.
actually, because they are thin, they actually do degrade relatively fast. Maybe it's physical disintegration into microplastic, right? But
Right.
that's,
No, we don't need
you
that.
don't see it.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, maybe slightly off topic? After the stream cleanup we did that day, and as I was driving home, I'm still very, very bothered by the amount of litter on the bridge over the 3 Mile Run on the Franklin side of 27. It is absolutely appalling. It's disgusting. I know it's on the state highway. Does Franklin, is it something we could ask the township to send out DPW? It's a busy place with the traffic. There's no shoulder. You really need trucks and cones, but it is so awful that I'd like to ask somebody to do something about it. Ted, is there a reason that the township wouldn't do state highway?
I don't offhand see any reason, and we are a clean community, supposedly, so Public Works should do something of the sort.
Would it be the kind of thing where maybe I take pictures and then I don't know if that's even safe to do, but take pictures and email Carl? What does one do when one's really concerned?
I would email both Bob Vornlacher and Carl Howe.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Now, with regard to Naaman Williams, that was one area that DPW was supposed to go back to because of some large objects and appliances. Does anyone know what happened there? Do we need to follow up on that, Stan?
Well, you are referring to some additional garbage removal or
Tires.
the tires? Well, I had some email exchange with, I dropped it. I sent to Jim Vasanella. Who responded? Ted, you did respond?
I know I saw it. I think I sent some response.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I didn't follow up, but DPW, they have been made aware of additional requirement needed to do something there, and we are volunteers. I'm not gonna,
And Stan, that dump in that little bit of woods across the way, that was just too much for volunteers to do.
yeah, that's what I was speaking of. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's.
Can I
pretty
make a
much
motion
covered.
that we open to the public?
Yes.
Second.
Get a second. Then move in second that we open to the public. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Open to the public.
Franklin Reporter, you are unmuted. Do you have any questions? Anything you want?
No, thank you. I'm fine, thanks.
Okay, great.
All right. Very good.
A motion that we close to the public.
Second.
Move in second that we close to the public. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Then move in second that
That
we
was
adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the meeting